Welcome to True Crime Case Studios, where we dive deep into the most gripping and shocking crimes. Emily Carter was a 40-year-old woman known for her creative talents in Color Space Studios. She lived in a cozy house in a friendly neighborhood in Orlando, Florida. Emily worked as an interior designer using her keen eye for detail to transform homes and businesses into beautiful spaces. She had a degree in interior design from the University of Florida at Orlando, where she was an active member of the Creative Design Collective. Emily was not just talented, she was also very caring. She often volunteered at local shelters like the Orlando Animal Care Center and organized community events. For instance, she was a key figure in setting up the annual Spring Festival at the local park, where families enjoyed food, games, and live music. Her friends described her as the heart of their group, always the one to plan get-togethers and make everyone feel welcome. She had a close-knit group of friends who often met up for brunch at popular spots like Maple Street Cafe. At home, Emily was the glue that held her family together. She was married to David Carter, an accountant, and they had an 18-year-old son named Jake. Emily and Jake were particularly close, often spending weekends together hiking in the Lake Eola Park or watching Marvel movies. In the days before her death, Emily was very busy but also very excited. She was planning a big community fundraiser for the local homeless shelter. She spent hours designing posters and flyers, and she even managed to get a local radio station, WQOR, to promote the event. Emily also had dreams of expanding her interior design business. She was in talks with a local magazine, Orlando Living, to feature some of her work. Her future seemed bright, and she was looking forward to all the possibilities. Emily's personality was warm and generous. She was the type of person who would go out of her way to help a friend in need or to make a stranger feel welcome. Her friends and family knew her as a selfless, loving person who always put others first. But her tragic death would leave a deep void in the hearts of those who knew her. On the morning of March 12, 2018, the usually quiet neighborhood in Orlando, Florida, was shattered by a gruesome discovery. At around 8:30 a.m., Emily Carter's neighbor, Sophia Ramirez, decided to drop off some homemade tamales. Sophia and Emily often exchanged baked goods and shared morning coffee. As Sophia approached Emily's front door, she noticed it was slightly ajar. Thinking nothing of it, she knocked and called out Emily's name but got no response. Concerned, Sophia stepped inside. She walked through the hallway, calling for Emily. As she entered the kitchen, she was met with a horrifying sight. Emily was lying on the floor in a pool of blood, motionless. The kitchen, usually spotless and filled with the smell of Emily's cooking, was in complete disarray. Sophia froze in shock, her mind struggling to process the scene in front of her. After a few moments, Sophia snapped out of her daze and fumbled through her phone. Her hands trembled as she dialed 911. The operator, sensing her distress, tried to calm her down and asked her to describe what she saw. Sophia's voice shook as she explained that her friend was lying on the kitchen floor and wasn't moving. The operator assured her that help was on the way and instructed her to wait outside until the police arrived. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air and 2 police cars pulled up to the house. Officers quickly secured the area and entered the home. Sophia, still in a state of shock, was gently led away by a kind officer who asked her to sit down and take deep breaths. She was offered a blanket and a bottle of water as she tried to calm down. As news of the discovery spread, neighbors gathered outside, whispering and speculating about what had happened. The local news station, WFTV, soon arrived and reporters began setting up their cameras. The neighborhood was buzzing with fear and curiosity as everyone wondered how such a tragedy could occur in their peaceful community. Emily Carter's body was carefully examined by the first responders. She had been stabbed multiple times with a kitchen knife, which lay beside her. The brutality of the crime shocked everyone present. Sophia Ramirez, still trying to comprehend the horror she had witnessed, provided a statement to the police. She described Emily Carter as a wonderful person and expressed her disbelief that something so terrible could happen to someone so kind and loving. In the following hours, forensic teams arrived to start their investigation, marking the beginning of a long and complex case that would uncover dark secrets and hidden motives. The police arrived quickly at Emily Carter's house on the morning of March 12, 2018, after Sophia Ramirez's frantic 911 call. Officers James Castillo and Isabel Rivera were the first on the scene, arriving within minutes. They were experienced detectives with the Orlando Police Department, known for their dedication and sharp investigative skills. As the officers entered the house, they were struck by the chaotic scene in the kitchen. The normally tidy room was in complete disarray, with broken dishes on the floor and blood splattered across the counters and walls. Emily Carter lay on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood with a kitchen knife nearby. It was clear that she had been stabbed multiple times, and the brutality of the attack was evident. Detective Castillo, a tall man with a stern expression, immediately began assessing the scene while Detective Rivera, known for her keen attention to detail, started documenting everything with her camera. They carefully examined the area around Emily's body, noting the signs of a struggle. The kitchen table was overturned, and a chair was broken, indicating that Emily had fought hard against her attacker. The detectives called in the forensic team, who arrived shortly after. The team used advanced tools to gather evidence, including swabs for DNA, fingerprint dusting kits, and high-resolution cameras to capture every detail. They meticulously collected samples of blood and other potential evidence, hoping to find clues that would lead them to the murderer. Detective Rivera noticed a set of muddy footprints leading from the back door into the kitchen. She pointed this out to the forensic team, who took detailed photographs and measurements. The footprints suggested that the killer had entered the house through the back, possibly trying to avoid detection. Detectives Castillo and Rivera continued to work late into the night, reviewing the evidence and planning their next steps. They knew that solving Emily's murder would require a thorough investigation and attention to every detail. The scene in Emily Carter's kitchen was a puzzle they were determined to solve piece by piece to bring justice for Emily and her grieving family. The first suspect in the investigation was Jake Carter, Emily and David Carter's 18-year-old son. Jake was a high school senior with a bright future ahead of him. He was a popular student at Orlando High School, known for his talent in basketball and his ambition to study engineering in college. His teachers spoke highly of his intelligence and dedication, and he had already received several scholarship offers. Jake had a complicated relationship with his father but was very close to his mother. Emily was his biggest supporter, attending all his basketball games and helping him with college applications. However, there was a secret Jake had been hiding. He was involved in a sexual relationship with his high school English teacher, Sarah McMasters. Emily had just recently discovered this relationship before her death, which caused tension in the household. When detectives James Castillo and Isabel Rivera brought Jake in for questioning, he appeared nervous but cooperative. He admitted to the relationship with Sarah McMasters, explaining that they had grown close over the past year. He described Sarah as supportive and understanding, someone he could confide in about his struggles at home and school. The detectives asked Jake about the night of his mother's murder. He claimed he was at a friend's house studying for an upcoming exam. His friend, Jason Kim, confirmed Jake's alibi, saying they had been working on a physics project together until late in the evening. However, the detectives were not entirely convinced and continued to press Jake for more details. Jake's nervousness grew as the interrogation continued. Detective Rivera, known for her empathetic approach, asked Jake about his feelings towards his parents, especially after Emily discovered his sexual relationship with Sarah. Jake admitted that his mother's reaction had been harsh, and they had argued about it. He felt guilty for causing his mother distress, but insisted he had no reason to harm her. The police found explicit text messages on Jake's phone between him and Sarah McMasters, discussing their sexual relationship and Emily's disapproval. The messages revealed a deep bond between them and their fears about the future. Jake expressed his frustration with his parents, but never hinted at any violent intentions. Despite his alibi, the police considered Jake a person of interest. His sexual relationship with Sarah McMasters and the tension at home provided potential motives. The detectives decided to keep a close eye on Jake, reviewing his social media and phone records for any additional clues. Jake's friends and teachers were shocked to hear about the investigation. They described him as a bright, ambitious young man with a promising future. The community couldn't believe that someone like Jake could be involved in such a tragic event. The detectives, however, knew that appearances could be deceiving and continued to scrutinize every aspect of Jake's life for answers. The second suspect in Emily Carter's murder investigation was her husband, David Carter. At 45 years old, David was known for his meticulous and highly organized nature. He worked as an accountant at a well-known local firm, and his colleagues described him as dependable but somewhat reserved. David was perceived as a dedicated family man, though his quiet demeanor often made him seem distant. During the interrogation, David was initially calm and cooperative. He provided a detailed account of his activities on the night of Emily's murder. He claimed he had been at home watching a basketball game on ESPN and then went to bed early. However, his calmness began to waver as detectives pressed him on his relationship with Emily. Detectives James Castillo and Isabel Rivera noticed signs of strain in David's demeanor when they mentioned Emily's recent discovery of Jake's secret relationship with his high school English teacher, Sarah McMasters. David shifted in his seat, and his responses became more defensive. He admitted that the news had caused tension in the family, but he insisted that he had nothing to do with Emily's death. As the questioning continued, it was revealed that Emily had also discovered something else that could serve as a motive. Emily had found out about David's own affair with Sarah McMasters. This revelation had caused a significant rift between Emily and David. Emily's diary entries, which the police found, detailed her heartbreak and anger over her husband's betrayal. David's short temper was another point of interest for the investigators. Friends and family members noted that while he was usually composed, he could become very angry. When provoked, James Castillo and Isabel Rivera questioned David Carter about his temper and whether it had ever led to violence. David denied ever hurting Emily, but the detectives were not convinced. To gather more information, the police interviewed David Carter's co-workers and neighbors. They described him as a man who kept to himself and rarely socialized. Some co-workers mentioned noticing changes in his behavior in the weeks leading up to Emily's murder. He seemed more stressed and distracted at work, often making mistakes in his otherwise flawless accounting records. Despite David Carter's insistence on his innocence, the detectives felt they had enough reason to keep him under close watch. They continued to dig into his background, looking for any additional evidence that could link him to the crime. As the investigation unfolded, David Carter remained a key suspect, his calm exterior masking the potential for deeper, darker motives. The police's thorough interrogation and evidence-gathering process aimed to uncover the truth behind Emily Carter's tragic death, and David's actions and responses during the investigation only intensified their suspicions. The third suspect in the investigation was Sarah McMasters, a 55-year-old high school English teacher at Jake's High School. Sarah was well-liked by her students and colleagues, known for her passion for literature and her dedication to helping students succeed. She often stayed late to assist with assignments and had a reputation for being empathetic and approachable. Sarah's involvement with Jake Carter came to light during the investigation. The relationship was quite the scandal, given their age difference and her position as his teacher. Detectives James Castillo and Isabel Rivera brought Sarah in for questioning at the Orlando Police Department. Sarah arrived looking composed but clearly nervous about the situation. During the interrogation, Sarah admitted to the sexual relationship with Jake. She explained that it had started innocently, with her offering extra help after school, but had quickly developed into something sexual. Sarah described her connection with Jake as beautiful, stating that she cared deeply for him and wanted to support him through his family struggles. The detectives pressed Sarah about her whereabouts on the night of Emily Carter's murder. Sarah claimed she was at home grading papers and preparing lesson plans for the upcoming week. She had no alibi, as she lived alone, and there were no witnesses to corroborate her story. This raised suspicions, and the detectives continued to probe. Sarah's phone records showed numerous sexually explicit texts and naked pictures exchanged between her and Jake, especially in the days leading up to Emily's death. The messages revealed their concerns about Emily discovering their relationship and the potential consequences. However, there was no direct evidence linking Sarah to the murder. Detective Rivera, using her empathetic approach, asked Sarah about her feelings towards Emily. Sarah admitted that Emily's discovery of the relationship had caused significant tension. Emily had confronted Sarah in her classroom, demanding she end the relationship with Jake immediately. Sarah described the confrontation as heated but insisted she had no intention of harming Emily or of ending the relationship. Despite her calm demeanor, the detectives sensed that Sarah was hiding something. They searched her home, looking for any evidence that might connect her to the crime. They found nothing incriminating, but Sarah remained a key suspect due to her close involvement with Jake and the conflict with Emily. Sarah's colleagues were shocked by the news. They described her as a dedicated and caring teacher, someone who went above and beyond for her students. The revelation of her sexual relationship with Jake was hard for them to believe, and the idea that she could be involved in Emily's murder was even more difficult to grasp. As the investigation continued, Sarah's life was turned upside down. The scrutiny from the police, the media, and the community weighed heavily on her. She maintained her innocence, cooperating with the authorities while trying to navigate the fallout from the scandal. The detectives kept Sarah under close observation, searching for any slip-up or new evidence that could shed light on Emily Carter's tragic death. On the afternoon of March 16, 2018, a breakthrough in the case came when new evidence was discovered. It was a warm, sunny day in Orlando, and the police received a call from a local gardener who had been working in a nearby park, Lake Eola Park, when he stumbled upon a blood-stained glove hidden behind some bushes near the park's edge. He immediately contacted the Orlando Police Department, and officers arrived at the scene within minutes. Detectives James Castillo and Isabel Rivera, who were leading the investigation, rushed to the park. They carefully retrieved the glove, making sure not to contaminate any potential evidence. The glove was sent to the forensic lab for analysis, and the area around the park was thoroughly searched for additional clues. The forensic team worked quickly, and the results came back later that evening. The blood on the glove matched Emily Carter's, and there were traces of another substance inside the glove that could be DNA from the suspect. This discovery gave the detectives a renewed sense of urgency. They now had a tangible piece of evidence that could potentially link someone to the crime scene. Detective Rivera reviewed surveillance footage from around the park, hoping to spot anyone who might have been acting suspiciously on the day of Emily's murder. The footage revealed a figure wearing a dark hoodie walking hurriedly away from the park around the time the murder was believed to have occurred. The person's face was not clearly visible, but the footage provided a lead. Further analysis of the glove's DNA revealed it matched David Carter. The detectives were now more convinced than ever that he was involved in his wife's murder. They decided to bring him in for further questioning, armed with this new piece of evidence. During the second interrogation, David's calm demeanor began to crack. When confronted with the DNA evidence, he became defensive and evasive. He couldn't provide a satisfactory explanation for how his DNA ended up in a bloodstained glove found near the crime scene. The detectives pressed David Carter harder, and his story started to fall apart. Meanwhile, the forensic team continued to search for additional evidence. They discovered a partial fingerprint on the handle of the kitchen knife used in the murder. This fingerprint also matched David Carter's, strengthening the case against him. The discovery of the glove and the matching DNA and fingerprint evidence were pivotal in the investigation. The detectives now had enough to move forward with their case against David Carter. They continued to gather more evidence, preparing to make an arrest and bring justice for Emily Carter. The new evidence brought a sense of relief to the community of Orlando, Florida, who had been on edge since Emily's tragic death. It also gave Emily's family hope that the person responsible for her murder would finally be held accountable. On March 18, 2018, armed with crucial evidence, the police were ready to make their move. David Carter, 45, an accountant by profession, had become their primary suspect. Known for his meticulous and organized nature, David's life seemed orderly from the outside, but inside he was battling jealousy and rage. The investigation revealed that David had discovered his son Jake's secret relationship with Sarah McMasters, the English teacher. This revelation angered him, but what infuriated him more was Emily's discovery of his own affair with Sarah. Driven by jealousy and rage, David had initially planned to confront Jake, his love rival. However, when Emily entered the room where he was waiting, his anger redirected toward her. In a moment of uncontrollable rage, he grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Emily to death. Detectives James Castillo and Isabel Rivera, who had been leading the investigation, arrived at David Carter's office early that morning. They had an arrest warrant and the evidence needed to take him into custody. David was taken by surprise as the detectives entered his office and informed him of the charges. His calm exterior shattered, and he became visibly agitated. David was handcuffed and escorted out of his office past shocked colleagues. His arrest made headlines, with local news stations like WFTV covering the story. The community was stunned, and the news spread quickly through social media. Emily's family had mixed emotions about David's arrest. They were relieved that the person responsible for Emily's death was caught, but they were also devastated that it was someone so close to them. Emily's sister, Samantha, expressed her sorrow and anger in an interview, stating that she felt betrayed by David, whom she had trusted. As David was led away by the police, his reaction was a mix of shock and resignation. He didn't resist the arrest, knowing the weight of the evidence against him. The detectives took him to the Orlando Police Department for booking, where he was processed and placed in a holding cell. The evidence, including the blood-stained glove with David's DNA, the surveillance footage, and the partial fingerprint on the knife, were crucial in solving the case. The detectives' relentless pursuit of justice ensured that Emily Carter's killer was held accountable. The arrest marked a significant step towards justice for Emily's family, providing them with some solace amid their grief. The community rallied around them, offering support and condolences as they began to process the tragic events. The trial of David Carter began on July 10, 2018, at the Orange County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters from WFTV, Orlando Living, and other media outlets. The community watched closely as the proceedings unfolded. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Sarah Bedine, a 42-year-old with a reputation for being tough and tenacious. Bedine laid out the case against David with meticulous detail. She presented the blood-stained glove, the partial fingerprint on the knife, and the DNA evidence linking David to the crime. She argued that David's jealousy and rage led him to murder his wife, Emily Carter, in a fit of uncontrolled anger. On the defense side was attorney Michael Grove Basato, a 50-year-old known for his calm demeanor and persuasive arguments. Grove Basato contended that the evidence was circumstantial and that there was no clear motive for David to kill his wife. He tried to cast doubt on the reliability of the forensic evidence and suggested that someone else could have been responsible for Emily's death. Throughout the trial, Emily's family sat in the front row, their faces a mixture of sadness and determination. Her sister often wiped away tears as she listened to the testimonies and evidence presented. The community support was palpable, with many residents showing up to the courthouse to stand by Emily's family. Jake Carter, now a college freshman, also attended the trial. He had to relive the painful memories of his mother's death and the shocking revelation of his father's affair with his teacher, Sarah McMasters. Sarah herself testified, admitting to the relationship with both David and Jake, but maintaining her innocence regarding the murder. The jury deliberated for 3 days. On July 25, 2018, they returned with a verdict. David Carter was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. David showed little emotion, staring straight ahead as his fate was sealed. The sentencing took place on August 1, 2018. The judge sentenced David Carter to just 15 years in prison. The sentence was met with mixed reactions. Emily's family felt some relief that justice had been served, but the pain of losing Emily was still raw. Samantha expressed her hope that David would reflect on his actions and the damage he had caused. The community had a similar response. Some felt the sentence was too lenient given the brutal nature of the crime. Others believed it was fair considering David's previously clean record and the complex emotions involved. David's conviction and sentencing marked the end of a painful chapter for Emily's family and the Orlando community. The trial had exposed deep wounds and secrets, but it also brought a measure of justice for Emily Carter's untimely death. The family and community now faced the challenge of healing and moving forward from this tragedy. After the trial, life in Orlando slowly returned to normal, but the impact of Emily Carter's murder lingered. Emily's family, particularly her sister Samantha, faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives. Samantha became a vocal advocate for domestic violence awareness, partnering with local organizations like Safe Orlando to educate others and provide support to victims. Jake Carter, deeply affected by the loss of his mother and the scandal surrounding his father's actions, struggled to find his footing. He decided to transfer to a college out of state, seeking a fresh start away from the painful memories. Jake focused on his studies and basketball, finding solace in the sport his mother had always supported him in. Sarah McMasters continued her teaching position at Orlando High School, despite the scandal tarnishing her reputation. She faced harsh judgment from the community. In fact, Sarah won an award in 2020 for her success in teaching students during the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite her success as a teacher, the stigma of the affair and her involvement in the case continued to follow her. The Carter home, once a symbol of a happy family, stood empty for several months before being sold. The new owners, aware of the tragic history, sought to bring new life to the house. They renovated and invited the community to a housewarming, symbolizing a fresh start and the healing power of community support. David Carter, now serving his sentence, had time to reflect on his actions. The prison system offered counseling and rehabilitation programs, which he participated in, hoping to understand and atone for his crimes. His relationship with Jake remained strained, but there was hope that time and reflection might lead to reconciliation. The trial and its aftermath left an indelible mark on everyone involved. Emily Carter's legacy lived on through the positive changes and awareness her tragic death inspired. The community of Orlando learned to come together, supporting one another and working towards a future where such tragedies could be prevented.